for being, and I'm excited to be talking more about the results and analysis from this year's Water Chestnut Chasers Challenge. I believe some of the folks that are on today's webinar participants that we had in this year's event. So thank you for those of you who were able to participate and also to attend today's training. So my name is Amy Jewett. I am the iMapInvasives coordinator at the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy and Pennsylvania Natural Heritage Program. And so I'm going to take the next hour and go through the results from this year's event. And I just have a few quick notes I want to mention. So this webinar is being recorded, and links to this webinar recording, as well as the ArcGIS Online story map that you see on your screen that I'll be using in the presentation, will be sent to all of you as far as being on today's webinar, so being an attendee, and then also all registered iMapInvasives users in Pennsylvania will also receive links to this information. So it's going to be spread to a lot of different people. And also during today's webinar, everyone should be muted during the webinar, but please feel free to type in any questions that you might have in the chat box at any time during the webinar. And then at the very end, Kirsten Carlson, who's also with the iMapInvasives program, who's on today's webinar as well, she and I will try to go through those questions and answer them at the very end of the webinar. So again, just feel free to type your questions in at any time, and then we will address them at the very end. So without further ado, I'll just go ahead and get started. So in July of this year, the Pennsylvania iMap program hosted its 4th annual Water Chestnut Chasers Challenge. And throughout CW, that's what it's referring to. And this event is designed to encourage natural resource professionals and citizen scientists to search for and report their findings for both presence and absence information for water chestnut, which is not only an invasive aquatic species in our state, but it's also a noxious weed. It's a Class A. Water chestnut, for those of you that may not already be familiar with this species, it's an aquatic invasive species. It's native to Europe, Asia, and Africa, and it was brought to the United States by water gardeners in the 1800s, and it quickly established itself here in North America, and its first known occurrence was in Massachusetts. And in the mid-Atlantic, it is spread to various water bodies in different states, including Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and West Virginia. And so this species can form these really dense floating mats that essentially will choke a water body. And that's why it's considered to be an invasive species, because when it does that, it will limit the light and oxygen that's able to penetrate into a water body. And it also impedes boating and other recreational activities. And so colonies of this plant can also outcompete our native organisms for nutrients and space. And it doesn't actually offer very much nutritional value for our wildlife. And so anytime you see a large population of this species in an area, you can know that the ecosystem is being impacted very negatively, and this species really should not be there. So this information, just to note that I just gave as far as a kind of quick overview of water chestnut, is from a really nice field guide that was planning field guide to aquatic invasive species. It was made by a sea grant, and it is available online, as you can see here. And so I would encourage you, if you have some time, to check it out. It's got a lot of really great overviews of various species to check out. So that's where information from. And also just to give you a quick overview as far as the plant itself and what it looks like. So in the photo here, we can see what most people see as far as water chestnut, because this is the part that is above the water surface. This is the floating part. But this is the part of water chestnut that is below the surface that maybe sometimes people don't always know about. So it has these air bladders that keep the top part of the plant above water. It also has this plant stem and these submerged leaves that are part of the lower part of the plant. It also produces these nuts or nutlets, as they're sometimes referred to. That's also part of the plant. And then this other diagram shows the full length of water chestnut. And all of this lower part here is all below the water. And typically, the length of the plant can range anywhere from generally 6 to 8 feet in length, but it can be up to 16 feet in length. So it can be a very, very long plant. And I didn't realize this myself until I recently encountered water chestnut myself in person, and I realized just how long of a root system basically this plant has. So I just wanted to point that out here for those of you that might not be familiar with that part of the plant. So all the data that was collected as part of the 2020 challenge was submitted to the iMapInvasives database, and both the online database as well as the iMapInvasives mobile app were available for use as data collection methods by all participants. And the challenge was hosted during the entire month of July, because this is considered a prime time of the year for folks to be able to easily spot water chestnut. So the purpose of this report was to summarize the findings and also the highlights of this year's Water Chestnut Chasers Challenge. But also, I hope that it serves as a call to action to natural resource professionals across Pennsylvania to do two things. One is to continue to survey other locations for water chestnut across the state, and also to treat existing infestations that are documented in the iMapInvasives database, as well as any other known infested locations. And if we can do these two things, if we can survey other locations, and if we can treat the existing infestations that we know about, both of these really important action steps will assist in preventing the spread of water chestnut to other parts of Pennsylvania, and hopefully control or even eradicate water chestnut in parts of Pennsylvania where it's currently known to exist. So this information was compiled with that goal in mind, to ultimately put boots on the ground and get more effort done to try to manage these locations, and also really to raise awareness about this species, because it is a high priority invader in our state. So there's a series of maps that I'm going to be showing you throughout the webinar today. And this first map is going to show you all of the data that was reported as part of this year's Water Chestnut Chasers Challenge. And this is going to be inclusive, presence, approximate, and not detected information. And just to note, because I'm going to refer to approximate data throughout the webinar, I want to make sure that folks realize the difference, at least in this case, between presence data and approximate data. So they both refer to on-the-ground observations of water chestnut, but in relation to the challenge specifically, presence data is referring to live water chestnut plants that were found at a specific place, whereas approximate data is referring to findings of dead water chestnut nutlets that are no longer viable and do not have the ability to produce a new water chestnut plant, but still are evidence of a potential location where water chestnut might be. And simply those water chestnut nutlets had floated to a different location, and we're marking the spot where those nutlets were found. So that's being referred to as approximate information. Here's our first map. These maps in a story map are really cool. They're interactive. So I can actually zoom in. Data was collected. Of each map is a legend, so we can see what each of these data points and the symbology represents. So the black dots are the not detected information, where water chestnut was looked for and not found. The presence information, where live water chestnut plants were found, is represented as a red dot, and those red concentric circles are representative of approximate data. So we can see some of those locations in southeastern Pennsylvania where in Monroe County, western Pennsylvania as well, all not detected. So that's just a summary of the data that we received from this year's challenge. But as I go through, we're going to be diving more into detail on these data reports. So this is just kind of a teaser. I really am very proud and very appreciative of all of the participants that were engaged in this year's event. And here's a list of all of our participants. We had 11 people in total. And so I just want to say a big thank you to each of you. The challenge event was open to natural resource professionals, citizen scientists, registered iMapInvasives users, and the general public. And so the folks that actually did take part were Autumn White, she's with Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, David Fowler, Glade Run Lake Conservancy. We had several master watershed stewards participate this year. We had Ed Hawkey, Gail Blum, Jim Walter, Kathleen Kimball, Paula Walter, and Ross McLennan. Keely Rowan from Penn State University participated, Mary Walsh from Pennsylvania Natural Heritage Program, and Nick Michalko, who is a citizen scientist. So here is just a collage of all of our participants. Again, I just want to say a very big thank you. This event would not have been possible without you. And so thank you to all of you for your participation and your dedication to this important work. So the next map I want to show is a map of that shows who surveyed where. So it's a map that we have representing each person that participated in the event, each of the 11. And there's different colors on the map, and that is essentially symbolizing each individual. So if we expand our map and we look at our legend, we can see that the different colors each represent an individual person, and so we can get a better idea of where various people were surveying. So up here in the northwest, we have Keely Rowan. She has the brown dot. She did some surveys there on some of the flowing water bodies. Mary Walsh did some surveys up here in Warren and Forest. Autumn White did some surveying in Erie. Dave Fowler reviewed Glade Run Lake in Butler County. And then we had a lot of our master water our citizens, a lot of surveying in Bucks County, and also some other locations here in southeastern Pennsylvania. And so I just want to show you real quick to be interactive. I can click on one of these data points and a little window pops up and it will tell me more information about that data point. So we can see this is for water chestnut. We know the observation date was July 24th of this year. Kathleen Kimball was the observer. And we can actually click right on this view and it will, oops, I guess I'm not logged into iMapInvasives. So if I was logged into iMapInvasives, right into the database, and I would be able to view that record right from the story map, which is pretty cool. So just as a note for those, you can engage with the map, and it's pretty cool. So that's just a quick overview of who surveyed where in the state. And then it puts together some quick statistics of several things. This is a list of the estimated number of locations that were surveyed by each participant. And I just want to quickly clarify. So when I refer to a location, I'm defining that as a section of a large flowing water body, such as a stream, creek, or river. So Jim Walter led the pack. He reviewed and surveyed over 50 locations, which was really remarkable. Paula Walter surveyed 24 locations. Kathleen Kimball, 17 locations. Nick Michalko, 11. Gail Blum, 10 locations. Ed Hawkey, 9 locations. Keely Rowan, 7 locations. Mary Walsh, 2 locations. And Dave Fowler, Autumn White, and Ross McLennan each reviewed 1 location. And in total, we had 270 data records. And this was inclusive of presence, approximate, and absence data. that were submitted to iMapInvasives as part of this year's challenge. And each of those data points represents a single site that was surveyed. And just to note, in some cases, multiple sites were surveyed at one single location. And so I just want to show an example of that here in this screenshot. So this was data from this year's challenge. This is Lake Galena in Bucks County, and you can see all these different data points on the map. Each one of those was a not detected data point. And up here we also have, looks like a polygon also representing not detected data. And so each one of these dots is representative of a single site that was surveyed. But overall, this location, Lake Galena, was just one particular location that was looked at. So just as more clarification on that. This is a breakdown of the sites that were surveyed, listed by the county where they were mapped in. So by far, Bucks County had the most data submitted. We had 245 sites that were surveyed in Bucks. We had 1 site in Butler County, 2 sites in Chester, 4 in Clearfield, 1 in Erie, 3 in Forest. We had 1 site that straddled the county lines of Forest, Jefferson, and Elk. 2 sites in Jefferson, 5 sites in Monroe, 4 in Montgomery, and 2 sites in Warren County. So I just want to talk a little bit more about some of the presence findings that came from this year's event. So prior to the start of the 2020 challenge event, we had 12 counties in Pennsylvania that were known to have documented occurrences of water chestnut. And that was according to data that we have in iMapInvasives. And so that is represented here in this map on the left. So each of these locations had varying degrees of infestation, again, according to data that we have in the database. And at the completion of the 2020 challenge, we had 19 new water chestnut presence reports, which is also inclusive of approximate data, that were submitted to iMapInvasives. And these reports were submitted by Ed Hawkey, Jim Walter, Nick Machalko, Paula Walter, and Ross McLennan. And thanks to each of you for submitting that really important information. So in total, we had 11 counties that were surveyed during the challenge this year. And of the counties surveyed, only Bucks and Montgomery counties were reported to have presence or approximate findings of water chestnut. And you're going to see that in the next map I will show you here in about a minute. And so each of the presence reports that we received in the database was reviewed by a natural resource professional who specializes in identifying aquatic plants. And all records were then later confirmed in the database by myself, the iMapInvasives administrator. A map of our presence findings. This is also inclusive of the approximate data as well. And so again, this was more focused in southeastern Pennsylvania. So if we expand this map, those are the red concentric circles. So again, later, but we can see the various places. Okay, so this has a lot of nice visuals in it. So I'm going to talk about a lot of the presence point data that we received as part of this year's event. And just so you know what's going on here, as I keep scrolling through the story map, the map that you see here in the upper left is going to be related to the photo that you see here on the right. And there's documentation that's related to both of them. Scrolling through. So the first presence record that I want to highlight was found in Hartsville, Pennsylvania, which is in Bucks County. And this, as you can see from this photo, was a very heavy infestation of water chestnut that was reported by Jim and Paula Walter, a husband and wife team, both master watershed stewards. And this is in a residential community. And this water chestnut infestation was actually reported to iMapInvasives previously in 2018, again by Jim Walter and also by Nick Michalko, who also participated in the water several times now. So Jim Walter noted 2 large mats of water chestnut, as well as several scattered plants in this water body that's located, again, near the village of Jameson. And this infestation in 2018, again, by Nick Michalko. So it just, again, having that continued information being reported year after year kind of helps us to understand how long an infestation has. So Jim Walter sent me an email with some really interesting information, and I'm glad he did, regarding this particular site. And I want to read this information to y'all because it's a really good success story. The water body was a detention basin that wasn't working properly and was retaining water constantly. When the owner learned about the water chestnuts present in the detention basin after we informed him about them, he realized that the basin wasn't working properly. So the owner brought in a bulldozer to rebuild the basin, dug out all the silt and water chestnuts, and reshaped the basin. Along with other master watershed stewards in Bucks County, we plan to monitor the new basin in the future, and if it doesn't work properly, the owner will likely be back again to make additional repairs. A win all around. So I just want to say, great job, Jim. Thank you for communicating this information to the property owner, because in doing so, this particular infestation of water chestnut no longer exists. And that is really great news. So thank you for doing that. Several locations reported in Lake Noxious County. The next finding was reported to IMAP by Ross McLennan, another master watershed steward. He noted the presence of water chestnut in the very northern part of the lake near where Haycock Creek flows into it. And again, I just want to do a special call out to Ross because from information this year, he did a lot of removal of water chestnut in Lake Noxious in various parts, including this part. And I don't know the whole specific number as far as how much. It was a significant amount. So well done, Ross. Thank you for not only reporting this information, but taking that extra step and actually removing these plants that you found. So great job. And also just to note, Gallus, the watershed specialist with Bucks County Conservation District, she mentioned to me that this was actually a new finding as far as water chestnut, because even though water chestnut has been found in Lake Noxious previously, it was not known to be in this northern section of the lake. And Lake Noxious is a very, very large water body. It's 1,450 acres in size. So knowing where water chestnut is in various parts of the lake is very important since it is so large. This was a new finding to be aware of. Lake Noxious, kind of closer to the southern end, another one of our master watershed stewards that participated, Ed Hawkey, he found a single water chestnut plant, as you can see here in the photo, near the Lake House Inn at the southern end of the lake, and he removed that plant from the lake. So very nearby, there is another location also in the southern part of Lake Noxious where Ed found 4 water chestnut plants, and so he removed those as well. And up here at the number 6 is Lake Towhee. So you can see they're very close together. So there has been a very dense infestation of water chestnut at Lake Towhee. And this is a photo from this year taken by Ed of at least one section of the lake that has this dense infestation of water chestnut. And just to give you context, so Lake Towhee is about 50 acres in size. And I believe about half of the lake still has a problem with water chestnut, so about 25 acres worth. But as far as a success story that's still happening, for over 10 years, a summer water chestnut pool in Lake Towhee, and they call this event Paddle with a Purpose. And so Megan Rogales, again, I mentioned her name already, she coordinates this event, and she does a fantastic job of getting everything coordinated, getting folks to participate. They even held this event this year with COVID-19, even though they had to do it a little bit differently as far as keeping people safe and doing so independently. But they've been hand pooling water chestnut from Lake Towhee. Also done some other treatment efforts at this lake as well in order to try to curb the spread of this species. So if you're ever interested in participating in this particular event, I would very much encourage you. A few years ago, and it was a really great event. I left feeling very accomplished, like I had actually done something that day that was worthwhile. And it's a complete volunteer event, and so they're always hoping to get as many people as possible to participate. So I would encourage you, if you live in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania, and inquire about how you can participate in next year's event. In Hilltown Township in Bucks County was a privately owned residential pond. And as you can see, it really does chestnut. So not only did Ed report this to iMapInvasives, 1,600 pounds of water chestnut plants from this water body, which is completely remarkable. And I am under the impression that Ed did this by himself, or maybe one other person or two other people helped him. But he did a lot of independent work to try to make sure that water chestnut was removed from this place. So well done, Ed. Thank you so much for all your hard work. All right, this is County. And this particular photo submitted by Jim Walter is kind of a far off view. But if you look and you see this green, all that is all mats of water chestnut. So this is a 22-acre impoundment. This particular water body and the water chestnut infestation there, we've actually known about as far as data in iMapInvasives for some time now. Several people have reported water chestnut being at this water body, and our earliest record in iMapInvasives was reported by the USGS NAS, which is the U.S. Geological Survey's non-indigenous aquatic species database, and they reported that in 1998. So we've known about water chestnut being at this location, at least starting at that time. And now here in 2020, it still, unfortunately, is existing. I do want to point out, and I want to give credit to the district. So they utilized grant funding that they received from the to remove almost 1,400 tons of water chestnut from the lower 8. And that was done in 2011 via mechanical harvesting. And in 2012, they treated the entire lake, chemically treated, and that effectively eradicated the floating water chestnut this season. However, as we know from the photographs that we've gotten and information that's been reported to iMapInvasives, treatment is still very much needed at this location to try to get this population under control. And so, unfortunately, this population of water chestnut is still going strong. Some of the clumps. So if this gives you any indication of how bad it is, I think this kind of it really speaks numbers as far as just under at Bradford Reservoir because of all the water chestnuts there. Finally, Nick Michalko, he was our citizen scientist. He observed several locations where he found these dead water chestnut nutlets, which can be, you can see that they're dead because they're no longer green. They've turned this, and so they're no longer viable and they can't reproduce any water chestnut plants. But still, they are valuable information to have in the database because it's providing evidence that perhaps, they floated to this location where he made his observation from a population somewhere else. And certainly, it's nice to have that information just as a reference point. It was made along the Schuylkill River in Bridgeport, which is in Montgomery County. Again, just to note, no live water chestnut plants were actually found at this site. And actually, when Nick participated in the challenge last year, he also noted the presence of several dead water chestnut nutlets at the same location. Also, Nick Bachalko noted these dead water chestnut nutlets along the section of Neshaminy Creek that's in Tyler State Park, just west of the borough of Newtown, again in Bucks County. And again, no water chestnut plants were found at this site. Nick also noted the presence of several nutlets at this same location, both in 2018 and 2019. Found this particular nutlet along the bank of the Delaware River in Neshaminy State Park, again, Bucks County, very near the Pennsylvania-New Jersey state line. Again, no live plants were found at this site, and Nick did note the presence of several dead nutlets at the same location previously in 2017 and 2019. Okay, so that was an overview of some of the presence information that we received. Now I want to talk just a little bit about some of the not detected findings that we got. So receiving our presence data, another really important component was that documentation of not detected or absence information. So essentially locations where water chestnut was searched. In total, we had 251 not detected records that were submitted to iMapInvasives as part of this year's event. So not detected data is really valuable to capture because it shows areas that are at least free and safe from water chestnut and the negative environmental impacts that it causes. But just want to note, because it's really difficult, if not impossible, to confirm absence data as far as myself. I mean, I'm not out in the field, so I can't go out to each of these and confirm that nothing was found there. We don't necessarily provide a guarantee as to the accuracy of not detected data. However, I think it's still valuable to put it because, someone with a trained eye went out to these locations, and as far as their search was concerned, they did not find anything. So I think it's still valuable to have that information in here. So I do have a few photos and screenshots I want to provide to you of some of the examples of not detected during this year's event. So the first location was in Washington Crossing that I'll highlight. This was submitted by Jim Walter. This was an unnamed water body near Washington Crossing, close to the Pennsylvania-New Jersey state line. And his survey resulted in no findings of water chestnut. So here's just a view of that location. And again, here's the map showing where he made his data point at. Wildlife Technology at Penn State Du Bois. She surveyed a large section of Little Toby Creek in Jefferson County, which we can see here in this photo, while on a kayaking trip. And actually, there were several sections of large water bodies that Keeley surveyed as part of this year's challenge event. She did a survey, and she did not find any evidence of water chestnut. So Paula Walter, one of our master watershed stewards, she surveyed this section. It's located near Landisville, Pennsylvania. Again, she's observed no visible signs of water chestnut in this particular water body. And so here's our next map. Again, this is showing just the not detected information was invasives from this year's. So again, even though we had a lot of presence information in Bucks County, we can see there were several locations where there was absence information reported as well. A few locations in Monroe, Chester, and then we have our locations out in the western part of the state that were surveyed as well. Okay, and then I have another map to show you guys. So this is the current distribution of water chestnut in Pennsylvania have in iMapInvasives, and this is inclusive of the presence information and approximate information to iMapInvasives from the 2020 Water Chestnut Chasers Challenge. And to note, we still have a total of 12 counties that have documented water chestnut occurrences. That number has not changed, so we're still at a total of 12 counties. The red dots are the confirmed presence points. The approximate, or the concentric circles are the confirmed approximate information. So that's where we have documented occurrences. Some of these locations are currently under treatment. And so there's the hope that some of those locations, for example, in Mercer County, I know they're doing treatment there. Maybe these locations will be treated and the water chestnut in years to come. So I put together a few recommendations based on data that we received as part of this year's event. So several locations, just based on the size of the infestation that's present, based on the photographs that were received, and also information within each data record, they really do require, some of these locations really require immediate action in order to curb the spread of this species and the negative impacts that it has on our native species and habitats. And so I just have a few locations that I want to mention. There's 3 in total. But I just also want to mention that certainly just based on this map that we looked at, there are many locations in Pennsylvania that really do require treatment, infestations of water chestnut being present. And so I don't want to exclude any of them necessarily just based on time, how much time I have here today to do the webinar. I can't go over every single one, but certainly anyone who has a registered iMapInvasives user account can go in and query the database and look at the information that we have for these findings. You can also reach out to me and I try to get more information regarding some of these places if you have an interest in learning more about that. And again, just to mention, some of these locations that I'm going to mention here below are currently under treatment or treatment efforts have occurred in the past. However, because the of water chestnut still exists, new or continued treatment efforts really are needed in order to contain and hopefully eradicate the population that's present there. So this is Bradford Reservoir. Again, we've talked about this one. This is a photograph by Nick 17. The density of infestation as far as water chestnut is right now in Bradford Reservoir. And I don't know this for sure, but I will kind of step out on a limb and say that there's a water body just below Bradford Reservoir, Little Neshaminy Creek. And we have received reports in iMapInvasives for water chestnut in Little Neshaminy Creek. And I would hypothesize to say that the water chestnut water body is flowing downstream or getting into Little Neshaminy, which is downstream, because this population exists. And so because this is here, other locations are being infested as well. And this, and I know that work has been done here already by the Bucks County Conservation District, but certainly more work is very much, in doing so, funding is going to be needed. But I just want to point this out that the, unfortunately, water chestnut population at Bradford Reservoir is very much alive and well. Station of water chestnut still present there, but as Megan with the Bucks County Conservation District, she did an excellent job of coordinating the Paddle with a Purpose water chestnut pooling event that's open to anyone that wants to participate during the summertime, typically in July. This year, I think it was July and August. Again, if you're interested in participating in that event, please reach out to Megan. Her email address is listed here. And I think I mentioned previously, but I do believe they had done some kind of additional treatment efforts here, whether that was mechanical harvesting or chemical treatment. I'm not entirely sure. Done some work here, but certainly more work is needed to try to keep containing this population. In Hartsville, Pennsylvania, both Nick Michalko this out as far as this infestation being present in multiple years of our Water Chestnut Chasers Challenge. And this will only get worse if we don't try to communicate with the property owner or get more people involved to talk about this being a problem. And hopefully we can get boots on the ground to get this infestation under control and hopefully eradicated. So I want a little bit of time now that we've gone over the results of the challenge to talk a little bit about some of the ways that we can prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. So water chestnut has the ability to spread locations via fragmentation, which essentially is referring to when a piece of the plant breaks off and it travels to a new location. So when that happens, when the floating leaves break apart and plant pieces attached to boat trailers or float to new locations, that's one way in which water chestnut can spread and create new populations. Also, the nutlets of water chestnut can float or travel on the surface of a water body and be picked by wildlife or get caught on recreational gear or clothing. In any of these instances, water chestnut nutlets can also easily spread to new locations and start new populations. So because this species has the ability to spread to new areas fairly easily, water chestnut really needs to be thought of as being a threat to any water body in Pennsylvania. And so even though we can see that it's only in 12 counties right now, certainly this is something that needs to be on the radar for everyone everywhere. And so to prevent the spread of water chestnut and other aquatic invasive species in Pennsylvania, I would encourage you to review the information that's highlighted in these fact sheets that were created by Pennsylvania Sea Grant. And one of the fact sheets is here. There's a screenshot of the tips for boaters, but I'll show you them here just in a minute. So each fact sheet targets a specific group of people based on their recreational interests and provides really good tips and guidelines. Sheets are available online. They are two-sided, and so there's information, tips for anglers that prevent and water hobbies to review these fact sheets and also to share this information with others because it's really important that people are aware of this issue and they know what to do. And here's just a photo I wanted to include that shows just how easy it can be to transport aquatic invasive species if you're a boater. So here's a photo of someone that just pulled their watercraft out of the water and they have all this vegetation that's still clinging to the boat. And if this person just drove away and maybe they were out visiting different water bodies, they could potentially transport all of this plant material to another location. And any of this, if it was invasive, could easily start up a new population in a new water body. And so it's really, really important to be checking your boat, checking your gear, removing any plants or animals that you might find like mussels or fish, removing that from your boat before you're going anywhere else. Also in Pennsylvania, there's a few locations where they are literally checking your boat for the presence of potential plant fragments spread to other locations. So this is a really serious issue, and it's something that more people, I think, need to know about. So again, just spread this information to others that you know so that people are aware that this is something that it's important for them to do if they're out recreating on the water. So this next section, I just have two more sections to go and then I'll be wrapping up. It's just a few quotes that I got from some of the participants from this year's event. And I just want to take some time and read through each one of them because I think it really was kind of neat to get this perspective from each person and to see kind of what they being part of this event. So Paula Walters said, the Water Chestnut Chasers is such an important, appropriate title project, clearly chasing down blips of blue representing water on Google Maps. Discovery of an absolutely beautiful county that I had never been in before. So thank you for that, Paula. Dave Fowler, he's with the Glade Red Lake Conservancy. He said, event, the search for water chestnut, thankfully not successful, led to the discovery of another invasive species, Eurasian water milfoil. So the program has excellent secondary benefits. So thank you, Dave, for that feedback. Ed Hawkey, one of our master watershed stewards, he said, I missed the group at Lake County this year, the Paddle with a Purpose event. But because of this challenge, I got to check some of my neighbors' ponds and I got to meet them. One pond had over 1,600 pounds of water chestnut in it. Because of COVID-19, I could not remove them with a group, but I still enjoyed removing them by myself. Again, and such great work there. Ross McLennan was another one of our master watershed stewards. He said, I enjoyed the water chestnut, especially the support from various folks who previously had no idea about the invasive nature of the water chestnut. This was our second year and areas we had not searched here on Lake Nockamixon. The areas we had done removal last year had less, but still had new plants. This is a very aggressive. We hope to see less and cover the entire 8 miles of the lake next year. It's been fun. Thank you. Thank you, Ron, for dedication to this event and for your participation. From Kathleen Kimball, another master watershed steward. Kathleen said, I participated in this summer's Water Chestnut Chasers Challenge, where I was introduced to the iMapInvasives software and mobile app. I was amazed at what a great tool it was straightforward and easy to use, and the best part was its use of GPS. You can take a picture of a plant or animal and exactly where you were at that time. It is a valuable tool for pinpointing species locations. And lastly, we have another master watershed steward. Jim said, this year the Bucks County Master Watershed Stewards organized so we could do a better job of surveying the county. We selected a section of the county to survey and in some cases removed water chestnut. It was a great experience finding several streams and ponds in the area that we had never seen before, establishing a much better idea of where the water chestnuts are in the county and how to remove them. So in conclusion, again, I just want to thank each of the participants that were involved in this year's Water Chestnut Chasers Challenge. Thank you for your time and your passion that you dedicated to this event. Again, it would not have been possible without you. So participation in events like this really do advance efforts to detect these high priority invasive species in our state, thus ensuring the continued and heightened awareness of the need of the problematic non-native invaders for the betterment of our natural environment. Also, I want to say a big thank you to Carol, who is on the webinar today. She created all of the ArcGIS maps that I showed you. She also put up with me as I sent email after email asking for various tweaks and changes. And so I just want to say a big thank you to Kirsten for your hard work in creating all the maps. Also, just again to reiterate, so again, the goal of this challenge was to equip environmental professionals as well as concerned citizen scientists with the knowledge of locations that are being affected by water chestnut in our state in order that on-the-ground treatment efforts can begin or continue where they may already be underway. And really, it's these treatment efforts that will really lead to a strengthened and healthier native ecosystem and for people of all ages to engage in outdoor recreation. As far as the information that I just presented on today, Um, it was largely reported and received in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, and we had some other reports that were received in we do realize that the other populations of water chestnut do exist in other parts of the state, including several counties that were not surveyed during this challenge. And so the people from the iMapInvasives program, including myself, really do encourage the continued survey and reporting of water chestnut, both now and in the future, in water bodies all across the state, to ensure that we have an accurate representation of the distribution of this species. All the results of the challenge will be distributed via email to each Water Chestnut Challenge participant across the state, all of you on today's webinar, and also all of our registered users that are part of the Pennsylvania iMapInvasives program. And lastly, I just want to that plans are underway to host this event again in 2021 for the 5th consecutive year. And so if you'd like to pre-register for this event a while, you can do so by contacting me. Just click on this button in the story map and you can send me an email like register. And that is the end of today's webinar. So I will open it up to questions. Again, make sure that you're using that chat feature, the chat box, if you'd like to ask any questions. And either Kirsten and I will read and answer that question, and we'll go from there. So just open it up now to questions, and we'll stay on the webinar for a few minutes and try to answer them as best we can. And just want to, so with no questions so far, but Megan Rogales, who I've mentioned several times, she's on the webinar today. She's Conservation District. She did make a note to say that Ed did remove all of the 1,600 pounds of water chestnut and in waders, not in his canoe. So well done, Ed. We really appreciate all your hard work. Okay, any questions? Just hang on for a few more minutes and answer any questions or comments that you guys might have. And just to note, if anyone does have questions after today's webinar, you can feel free to email me. My email address is right here. And so feel free to reach out to me with any questions or comments, and I'll be happy to address them afterwards as well. So if there aren't any questions, I'm not seeing any come in the chat, which is fine. I will just say thank you all for being at this webinar. And yeah, just really appreciate all the participants, your hard work and dedication. And yeah, if you have anything to ask or inquire about, feel free to reach out to me via email afterwards. So I guess we'll wrap up and thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day.